Alright, welcome back to my channel. I've not been able to do video for some days now due to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. If you've been on this YouTube space for a long time, long enough, you will probably know who Charlie Kirk is. I don't know him on a personal level, but after following him for a very long time and watching lots of his videos and podcasts, it felt like I know him personally, but it's terrible. So today I want to talk about a particular topic that nobody's talking about, as usual. The media is neglecting it or not giving it, not balancing the argument, which is what the media should do. But they just give you one-sided perspective of what is happening and probably what to expect and tell you what to think. So that's why I've actually stopped listening to mainstream media. They are not genuine, they are not serious, and they are biased. They are biased and they have an agenda. Yeah, I can tell you 99% of the media houses have an agenda. It's the world we live in now. There's nothing we can do about it. So that's why I just focus on getting things for myself and seeing and drawing my own conclusions. For the first time in Nigerian history, we'll be having a discriminatory law. We have a lot of badly written laws in Nigeria, but good enough, none of them has been discriminatory. So some feminists in Nigeria are trying to push a law that will discriminate men from contesting elections and reserve seats for women. So far, the media have presented this bill like it's a good thing that is trying to solve a historical wrong, a structural barrier for women, as if women has been historically, since the creation of Nigeria, women could not contest for elections. That's their narrative, which is false. This bill was proposed in 2022 for the first time. It failed to pass in the lower chamber, and they've gone back to revise it and bring it back again. The bill simply wants to reserve seats for women in the House because they think that women cannot contest and win fair and square in a level playing ground, which is false. Women have been contesting and winning elections in Nigeria, a lot of them, not as much as the men. And the reason is simple, because the men are better at it. They are better in politics. But instead of teaching women and coaching them in how to play the political game, they want to go the easy route. The easy route is reserving seats for women and telling men that they cannot contest against those women. And after the bill will be revised after, I don't know, if it's 10 years, after 10 or 15 years or 20 years, the bill will be revised if the number of women in the House is still not yet equal, because that's what they are targeting. Forget that. They are saying it's 30%, or 35%, whatever. But I know that they are looking for either it's equal or they have more women in the House. So after the 20 years, thereabout, and the agenda is not met, they'll have to revise the bill and reserve more seats for women, because that's what it is. It's a terrible idea, I will tell you, and that's why I'm going to it. I will tell you why it's a terrible idea. Reserving seats for women makes women seem more weak than they are. I don't know if feminism is trying to tell us that women are as good as men, or they are just trying to tell us that women can't compete in a fair game, which is ironical, because they are trying to. Feminists always say that women and men are equal. So all of a sudden they want to reserve seats for women because they feel that women cannot contest against men. Now, what are the arguments? I will tell you the arguments. Their number one reason for thinking that they need to reserve seats for women is that it addresses the gross underrepresentation of women. It's a stupid reason. If women are first of all, women are not grossly underrepresented. We have laws in Nigeria that doesn't discriminate against women. So being a representative doesn't matter your gender, because if a woman can be in the House and still vote against bills that will favor women because of her own personal understanding and probably the angle of her lobbyist. So it doesn't really matter. Being that a man is in the house doesn't mean that all the bills he'll be favoring or all the laws that will be passed will be in favor of men. So far in Nigeria, Nigerian men has been neglected, yet there are more than 90% of the members of the House and members of the House of Reps and the members of the Senate are men. Nigerian men are dropping out of school at an increasing high rate. Nigerian men are engaging in violence, increasing high rate. Nigerian men are doing a lot of drugs. Nigerian men are not graduating from college. The literacy rate for Nigerian men is declining. Suicide rate is going up. Nigerian men are not really getting married early anymore. The average age that Nigerian men get married in Nigeria is 32, between 30 and 32, which is very, very late in life. Yet we have men that are representing men in the Senate. It's stupid to think that because you have a man in the Senate that all the bills there will favor men. The high tax that they've passed into bill, who will bear the brunt? The men, because 99% of Nigerian households are headed by men. So the brunt will be on them. That we have men representing men, I don't know what that means. That we have men in the House, in National Assembly, doesn't mean that all the laws will favor men. Similarly, having women in the House doesn't automatically translate that all the laws that will be passed by that woman, that will be supported by that particular woman, will favor women. That makes it a very stupid argument. You don't need women to represent women. You only need someone that is sensible to represent women, man or woman. As far as you are qualified, as far as you contested and won. That's my point. Their next reason, ridiculous. It's so that it's for fairness, justice, and democratic legitimacy. Since women are roughly half of the population, their very low representation is seen as unjust and a democratic deficit. Stupid again. What is unjust? That a law permits you to contest for election, whether you are a man or woman. How is that unjust? We have a gender-neutral law that permits you, whoever you are, whether you are tall, short, white, black, you are blind, you can hear, you have disability, it doesn't matter as far as you contest and win the election. That is not unjust. As a matter of fact, what is unjust is trying to create a law that will reserve seats for women and not reserve seats for men. We can't solve all the inequalities in this life. We can't. That is the truth. If you reserve seats for women, okay, that doesn't make any sense. What about women that are disabled? Would you reserve seats for them too? Yes, they're also trying to reserve seats for people with disability, but that's a topic for another day. I still think it's a very, very bad idea. But that's a separate topic. If you reserve seats for women, that woman there would not represent all the women. They will not represent women with disabilities. They will not represent women in the rural areas, which in fact are the people that should be represented. And I make the argument that this law is not about the women in the general population. This law is about the people that are interested in politics, that have contested and failed. They've contested and failed the election, so they want to have an easy route to it. Or rather, and also people that are presently in the house or in office that are not sure about their next election, if they win or lose. So they needed to find an easy way out by reserving seats for women so that they can go through that. Women do not need affirmative action. Nobody should support affirmative action. Why do you think the majority of the world serious countries in this world are against affirmative action laws? Especially when it has to do with elections. There's no other country in this life, in the West especially. Forget about Rwanda. Rwanda is a very special case. I still think that their law is stupid, but Kagame is a very smart guy. He knows what he's doing, and I understand his perspective. No other country, the US don't have a reserved seat bill. UK, no Western country have a reserved seat bill, yet they have enough women in their politics. women have contested and won election against men in Nigeria. If a woman campaigns to me and a man campaigns to me and I see that the woman has a better ideas, I will vote for the woman. You don't need to reserve seats for anybody. So it's unjust. It's totally unjust that we are trying to reserve seats for women, for special kind of people, as if being a woman is a disability. That's what they're trying to frame it to be. And I think it's ironic. It's ironic because feminists think that men and women are equal. And now they want to reserve seats for women because the women cannot contest against the men. Then their next reason is that they want to solve structural barriers and historical exclusion. What does that mean? There's no historical exclusion of women in Nigerian politics. That is one way that Nigeria seems to be one of many ways that Nigeria has gotten it right than a lot of Western worlds. Right from the creation of Nigeria, women have always have equal rights than men, except in fact during the military eras where military leadership were ruling by decrees, fiats, and martial law. Women have a right to vote. They didn't need to they didn't need to protest to have a right to vote. Women have equal pay in their workplaces. They didn't need to campaign and protest to have equal pay and recognition in their workplaces. If a woman and a man are in the same field and they are running the same amount of services as the man and as good as the man, they are paid equal in Nigeria. So there's no historical exclusion. I don't know what kind of historical exclusion that they mean by this on structural barriers. Where is that? What does that mean? Explain it to me, because I don't see it. It's inexistent. Their next reason, international and legal obligation. Nigeria signed an international treaty related to gender equality and has the obligation to promote gender equity. Nonsense. Nigeria has obligation to promote gender equity. To what? What does it mean? 50-50 in the House? 50-50 in our National Assembly? I find it disturbing that the only time feminists or people that are promoting this kind of badly written laws, that the only time they think about equality is when it's in favor of the women. Presently in Nigeria, there are more women in medical field, graduating from medical fields, than men. Mention any medical field that you want. Pharmacy, medicine and surgery, optometry, nursing, radiography, anyone you want. Med lab scientists. There are more women in those fields than men. As a matter of fact, on a ratio of 1-3. 1 man to 3 women. That's unequal. How about we say, okay, suspend admission for women in such fields and only admit men now that we have more women than men so that we can be equal. And that makes the argument genuine. That makes the whole idea that you want equality, makes it show that you are serious about it. If you go to any bank, before you see a man, you must have seen like 4 women in any bank in Nigeria. There are more female bank staffs in Nigeria than men. How about you say, okay, banks stop employing women for now and employ the men to balance it up? How about that? The equality doesn't get there because nobody cares about the men. Anything that happens to men is funny. That's why nobody cares the fact that men are dropping out of school. Men are not going to school again. Nobody cares that men are doing drugs at a higher rate now than ever. In Nigeria, I'm not talking about Yankee. Nigerian men are doing drugs more now. They are engaged in more violence now than ever. But nobody talks about it. It's funny because they are men. In all the engineering departments in Nigeria, whether university or polytechnic or technical colleges, there are 99% men. How about we start reserving seats for women there? No, we wouldn't do that because women are not interested in such fields because they require climbing poles and lifting heavy objects. Women are not interested. How about we start reserving admission quotas for them there too? No. They only want equality when it's soft work. You have AC around and you have a nice fancy office. Then you think about equality. Women that are interested in politics, that have zero knowledge of what they are going there to do, they don't have good manifestos. They don't know how to campaign against the men. So they want to disqualify the men by reserving seats for themselves. It's a terrible idea on all fronts. The fact that we are also talking about cutting down the cost of governance and we want to reserve extra seats for women in the House. Currently, we have about 109 members in the Senate. They want to add more to raise it to around 120 something or 130 something for the reserved seats, increasing the cost of governance by extra 22 billion naira. Yet we are debating on cutting cost of governance. It's a bad idea. Their next reason, that the bill is temporary. The bill runs for a number of election cycles, then we assess and adjust. Yes, it's temporary, but that doesn't mean that being temporary means that it will be removed soon. No. It means that there are chances that the number will increase from reserving maybe, I think it's 34 seats. I will confirm that. Reserving from 34 seats and increase to maybe 50 in maybe 20 years. When they see that the number of women is not yet where they want it to be, they have an option of increasing the number of reserved seats. What kind of country are we trying to build by proposing laws that are bad? Who is behind it? Maybe we'll think about who is behind the laws. This particular law, not behind the other badly written. We have a lot of badly written laws, but this is going to be the latest badly written law that will be introduced to our constitution. Their next reason is it's low cost relative to the benefit. No, it's not. It's not low cost relative to the benefit. 22 billion naira is a very, very high amount, and it will increase soon because they are debating on increasing the salaries and allowances of people, of elected officials. So it's not just 22 billion naira, it will increase more. And the benefit doesn't outweigh the risk, the cost. The benefit there's no benefit in it, I can tell you that. How do I know that there's no benefit in it? They always like to reference Rwanda. Now let's talk about Rwanda. Nigerian women are better than Rwandan women by every other metrics. By every metrics. Nigerian men have a high literacy rate. Southern Nigeria have a literacy rate of over 80%. Forget about Northern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria are not interested in Western education. So I don't see a reason why the Southern Nigeria will have 80% literacy rate and Northern Nigeria will have a literacy rate for women of 30%. And then when you do the national average, you see it at 50 something percent, and somehow it simply means that Nigeria is not progressing. That's nonsense. If the rest of the country have 80% literacy rate for women and a particular section have 30% literacy rate, don't add it to the national average. It's not the national average. It's that particular region's average, because it seems that they don't want it. This is 2025. Rwandan women have 75% or 75% literacy rate for women. Southern Nigerian women have 80%. We are better in that. Irrespective of the fact that Rwanda have over 60% of their representatives as women, of their lawmakers as women. Yet there is no law that is in Rwanda today that we don't have in Nigeria. There is none. Nigerian women have equal rights under the law. They have a high literacy rate. Nigerian women have right to property, right to land. What? Mention it. There's no law that Rwanda have that Nigeria doesn't have. So why are we referencing Rwanda? Rwanda women don't have the best of gender-focused laws. Maternity leave in Rwanda is still among the lowest in the whole world. While some people have a maternity leave of up to 52 weeks 1 year. Rwanda have a maternity leave of only 15 weeks. Women in Rwanda are still poor. A lot of households in Rwanda are headed by women. Yet, the households headed by men seem to be doing better than the household headed by women in Rwanda. Domestic violence is still very high in Rwanda. Their women are even scared of reporting that they are being abused by their partners. Yet, they have more female representation. Women in Rwanda cannot contest against Paul Kagame. We've seen that with Diane. You can't do that. Rwanda have a very poor democracy. And it's Rwanda. This is Rwanda being Rwanda. Rwanda is not like the rest of the world. Rwanda is like a ticking time bomb. If you don't manage Rwanda well, it will go up in flames again. And I commend Kagame for being a smart guy and doing something that he did that caused the whole world to ignore him, because in a country that you have over 60% of your cabinet, you have over 60% of lawmakers as women. That's what the world wants. They will ignore you even if every other thing that you're doing is terrible. Rwanda have a very low democracy index, among the lowest in the world. And I'll say it again, Nigerian women are far better than women in Rwanda. Now that brings me to a point where I will have to analyze. I asked the question, who is behind this bill? Who is behind it? Okay, this lady here, this is a protest that happened quite recently, not very recently, but this is Dr. Sydney Jack. She contested for election in 2019 and lost. Somehow she convinced herself that the reason why she lost is because she's a woman. So she's protesting to reserve seats for women. Bad idea. A lot of the people in support of this bill are women that are in politics or women that have interest in going into politics. Because, truth be told, the political landscape of Nigeria is not a place where people with passion to serve the population go to. It's simply a place where people that want to get rich go to, because when you go there, you collect gigantic allowances, and then you become a very big man and become influential and powerful. So because a lot of all these women desire all those things and they cannot compete, they want to go through the back door. And the men that are supporting them, I don't talk about those ones. All right. I went to their website, reservedseatsforwomen.org. One of their sponsors is TOS, a media organization that nobody knows about. Then you ask yourself, how are they making revenues? If you're a media company and I've never heard of you, how are you making money? They're not making money from conventional means that the media houses make money from. They are making money from sponsorships and funding and NGO, blah, blah, blah. That's how they make money. Now, TOS happened to be in contact with another organization that is called Code, Connected Development. Connected Development is an organization, a non-governmental organization that have admitted in their website to have received money from OSIWA, Open Society Initiative for West Africa. OSIWA is an organization that is affiliated to George Soros. I don't know if you know who George Soros is. From the name, Open Society Initiative for West Africa, he is the guy that wants to eliminate international borders. He wants the world to be one giant global country without international borders. I don't know how that can work, but thinking about it, it's one of the most terrible ideas in this life. I don't know what he intends to achieve with that. So if you're conversant with George Soros, you would know that TOS, a media company, having, I don't know the kind of connection that they have with Connected Development and George Soros. But it's not beyond the scope of imagination. I can think, but because I don't have evidence, they will say, you are speculating. No problem. Now, TOS that have somehow a suspected alliance with George Soros, suspected, alleged, is partnering a bill that wishes to reserve seats for women in our National Assembly. I don't need to look further anymore. You can call it a conspiracy theory, no problem. But the truth is, this unnecessary pushing of women into politics, nowhere else in the world except Africa. There's no problem with women being in politics. They've always been in politics. They've contested and they've won. But there's a push presently. The same bill that is being proposed in Nigeria is being proposed in Kenya. And some other few African countries, Rwanda already have it in place, are proposing the same bill. Now you ask yourself, why? There's no other place in this world where they're reserving seats for women. They are pushing women into politics. The global agenda to relegate men and push women into leaderships, where men can become the subordinate. Anyway, there's no reason for me to complain too much about it, because I already know the outcome. If it ever succeeds, the society will simply burn to the ground. Because what you have at the end of the day is women being at the helm of affairs, making the decisions, while the women will be relegated to the background, and they wouldn't like it, and they will revolt against it. They will revolt like men do revolt. They wouldn't revolt like women do revolt. If you want to solve equality under the law is enough. But pushing agendas that will relegate men to the background is a dangerous pedestal to walk on, because it's unsustainable. It cannot work. There are things that men do that women can't do. There are things that women can do that men can't do. And I'll leave it at that. I know that the bill will pass. It will pass because they've lobbied so hard and campaigned for it. So it will pass. It doesn't matter what I say. I just want to say it so that you know that something like this is happening. That there's a... I'm sure that you probably haven't had my perspective before, because the media is not interested in this, in my perspective. They're only interested in pushing the narrative that women have always been subjugated and discriminated against, and nobody gives a shit about women. That's the narrative that the media is interested in pushing, and they've succeeded largely. So the bill will pass. It's still in the lower chamber. Before the end of this month, September 2025, it will scale through the lower chambers and move to the Senate, where it will be deliberated and voted upon and eventually become law. It will pass. I'm pretty much should I say optimistic? I don't know if I should be optimistic about it, but I know it will pass. But I don't know if it's a good thing if it passes. It will pass. But God help us all.